So here we are. First off, before we dive into it, I just want to say thank you to everybody that logged in. I see we got a couple people logged in here at the bottom. There's about 50 people in there already. So thank you everyone for logging in for the first episode of the Marked Celebrating Artists Like Athletes series. Before we dive into the interview and the discussion, I want to say thank you to the Mark team, Rochelle, Glenn, Dylan, CK, the Yellowbrick team, Rob, Namira, Lizzie, and everyone on Yellowbrick. But guys, I got Dwayne Edwards on here. I feel like I don't really need to give him an introduction, but good friend of mine over I want to say over the last 6 years.
Yes.
A lot of good discussions, and personally has helped me take myself to another level. AJ, Alexander John, we met in Cleveland recently too, like in February. But every time we talk, I feel like I get off the phone and I'm a little bit smarter.
That's the kind of people you want to always hang around with, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. So
we got too many of those people. We were like, damn, why did I just get that dude an hour?
Exactly.
Can't get that back.
It's the truth, man. The feeling's mutual.
And the thing that's cool about this is, I talked to Dwayne about AJ and AJ about Dwayne, and the conversation just kind of was like, man, why am I talking to you guys separately? We should just all be having a conversation together. So thank you guys for jumping on and helping me to kick this off. And before we get into the questions, how have you guys been doing with COVID?
It's been pretty normal over here, and I keep on saying that. I think the changes for me has been not being able to deal with a lot of runs in the city as much as I used to, but the studio and everything for me is kind of like it's at home. So I've been able to maintain, a busy workflow, and actually business for me picked up in this time. There's a lot of companies that are seeking help, on being creative, and thinking different. So it's been crazy for me, man.
That's good, dude. Congrats.
Yeah,
It's
thank
been
you.
the complete opposite for me. Shoot, man, I'm so wired to be going. And, when the world says stop, I'm still trying to figure out how to go.
Yeah.
And eventually I just succumb to not going and embracing the idea maybe I should just do nothing, and embracing the idea I haven't done nothing for a long time.
Right.
And, it's the opposite for me, man. I'm trying to figure out. I'm a natural introvert, so I'm cool with being at home.
Yeah.
But just the idea of not being productive and busy, that's the part that was getting me the most. But I'm good. I'm good with it now, though. I'm good because I accepted it. That's what it is.
I feel like we don't have a choice eventually. You just have to learn to be good with it.
Absolutely.
And understand that we actually have every little say in it, and just how do we navigate it to create new stuff. So I don't like to say, it's the new normal. I just feel like it's just the new.
Right.
Create the new, and don't let the new create you. And then you'll be all
right.
So I'll start off like this. I know a little bit about both of you guys. People logged in may not. I'll start with Dwayne. Dwayne, you've done a lot of stuff in the design space. Just for the people who don't know, how did you get, because a real interesting story, how did you get started in the whole design or becoming a designer in the sneaker space?
Yeah, man, I don't want to give you the long story. I'll give you the short. But no, actually, a good friend of mine, she reached out to me and she sent me a text after she watched the Last Dance, episode 7 and 8. She goes, "Now I understand you better," right after seeing that, because I've always had this drive. I've always had this competitive nature about myself. And I think some of it was just because the odds, I've always felt like the odds were stacked against me. Like the worst thing you could do or the best thing you could do for me is tell me I'm not going to do something or I can't do something.
Right.
And, growing up in Inglewood, that was kind of my everyday. And being an artist, it wasn't the back in the 80s, man. Like you didn't say stuff like that. Like where I'm from, you bang, you hoop, you slang. Like, so like being an artist is not like a cool thing to say. So I never talked about it.
Right.
And so I just did it inside the house. And when I went outside, I was with my friends. But I've always had a passion for drawing. I didn't know what design was until much later in life. But just growing up as an artist, naturally gifted. I had two older brothers that also had the same gift. They passed on their knowledge to me. And my first taste of kind of artistry was competitions. Like, so I would enter these competitions in the TV Guide. For those young people out there, used to be a book that came to your house that told you what was on TV every week, which sounds crazy right now. But yeah, I was entering competitions and winning, right? But I was like 12 and 13 years old. So that kind of gave me the energy, like maybe I could do something with this thing. And then I just started drawing sneakers because I was drawing athletes. And then I just started drawing the shoes. So then that became my thing all through middle school and high school, entered a design competition that Reebok gave. And they's like, I won it. But they were like, you too young, come back and see us when you finish college. And I'm like, man, I'm 17 from Inglewood, man. College ain't in my future. Like, what you mean come back and see you? So they were one of the first ones that pissed me off, really. And it really made me do it harder, right? They made me go harder. And so long story short, man, I got an opportunity to be a file clerk at a footwear company. And I'm like, man, I'm at a footwear company, man. I've been wanting to do this all my life. Let me try. And I was getting the no's and got to go to college and do all these things. And one day, like, this gift came in a wooden suggestion box, and they put them in every department for ways to make the company better. And I was just sketching shoes every morning, drop in the box, go to work. Every morning, drop in the box, go to work. And the president of the company called me in his office one day and offered me a job after about 6 months, every day of doing that. So he just saw the hustle that I had and the energy and passion that I had. And I guess what I was putting in the box looked pretty good. So he offered me a job, and I just turned 19 years old. And so that's how I got in back in 89. So 1989 was when I started.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, the fact that you're putting it in a suggestion box, before that, pause, the fact that you mentioned TV Guide, that just aged all of us right away.
Right.
It's like, I know TV Guide, even to me, when you said it, was like, TV Guide, wow.
Yes, bro. Yeah.
But the suggestion box, I think that's really, really cool, just because, like, it just shows determination and you know what you wanted. AJ, I know you went kind of a different route, but share how you kind of got started and, how you've gotten to where you got.
Yeah, so I found out I could draw at like the age of 7. And finding that out for me started in liking graffiti. And so I started off doing a lot of like pen work. And then my stepdad told me, draw exactly what you see. Like that was like, it was like one of those like Yoda or Obi-Wan Kenobi moments, And so I started trying to apply that in, drawing exactly what I see. And it started working out. So I started drawing like Marvel characters and stuff like that. And then I thought I was going to work for Marvel or Disney, actually. That's why I was like, they were at the time. So it wasn't TV Guide for me. It was these little pamphlets that you could get in the mail that you had to draw like a turtle and a pirate. I don't know if you.
Oh, that was the same shit, dude. That was the same one.
Listen, I got like
that was the same one. Right. I was killing Chippy the Turtle, man. I was killing
Chippy the Turtle.
Yeah.
So I did that as well, and got like a 99 point something or whatever, and I felt like I was like, I'm killing this, And so I too felt like the future was bright because these people are recognizing me, and coming from the hood, having 10 kids in the family and not having much money, my mom wasn't able to invest in that side of me. But the one thing that I do agree with is that saying that you're an artist at the time when we were growing up, I was 10 years old when you got your start. But when
thanks, bro, appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying we're right there. We're right there. I'm like your little brother, So but it still wasn't cool. At 10 years old, they told me, go be a doctor, go be a lawyer. And I picked being a lawyer, but I grew up and felt like it was just not my thing. And I got into retail, and then the art side, you know, just kind of stuck with that. And I ended up getting into sneakers by mistake because I got a whole story, you know, that runs. But how did I get into sneakers? I had a friend of mine, I was designing clothes. It was 2005. And I had a friend of mine that I was working with. We were doing like a fashion line. He would do sneakers and clothes. I would do clothing. And I had a client that I was doing some visual merchandising for, and went into his store and kind of pitched him on this concept of, hey, you know, Mitchell & Ness is kind of like fading right now. So you're going to need to actually have an edge or have a reason why people need to come visit your store. So I pitched him on, you put the Mitchell & Ness jersey in the window, you put the custom sneaker next to it. You know, now you have this like amazing like setup that nobody else has. So he loved the idea. And my boy was supposed to come through on this. And he just like flaked on it. He was like, nah, I don't think it's a good idea. It's whack. Matter of fact, like, you know, it's Mitchell & Ness, it's faded. I don't think it's a good idea. I'm not going to do it. So for me, I got to keep my client happy because, you know, I'm the visual merchandising guy. I'm setting this whole thing up. And he's like, well, do you think you can do it? And I thought about it for a second. I'm like, the opportunity is here. I might as well take a chance. And I gave it a shot, man. I prayed about it and came back with some shoes the next day. He got me the shoes, and I did like a Cleveland Brown shoe, and then I did a Ron Harper era Cavs shoe. But the difference between the way I did it, I didn't know how to hand paint when I started, because it was sort of like foreign to me, like painting. It was almost like airbrushing in air. Like I never was that guy either. So I drew the stuff on the shoes, and then I carved it into the shoes and wood burned it into the shoes. So there was like this whole extra level. And this is back when Dwayne, you could attest to this. This is back when Air Force Ones were still leather. You know,
Yes.
you actually still had that ability because they were still leather. So my uniqueness is what made people come pick it up. And man, we opened up the store and we sold out of both shoes. And I found myself like, you know, with over 30 orders, you know, at $350 a pop. I thought I was rich. I was like 26 years old, and I was like, oh man, this is it. But that's how I got in the game. It was sort of by mistake, but I feel like somebody else's mistake or what could be mistakes sometimes are destiny for you, and it awakens something else that you didn't know you had.
No, that's true. Actually, the temp, I worked at a temp agency that sent me to LA Gear, and one of my good friends at the time, they gave him the assignment first, and he didn't want to go, so he just said he couldn't find it. So they just sent it to me. They were like, well, then you go. And that's how I ended up going to LA Gear.
I mean, I think it's super interesting that both of you, in your own right, are comfortable taking risks, right?
Yeah.
Drawing the shoe, put in a box, that's a risk because, you know, half of being an artist is showing your work.
Right.
That was my Instagram, bro. You know what I'm saying? I just had somebody see it, right?
Exactly.
Sure, absolutely.
Exactly.
I mean, both of you guys went two different ways, but what I'd love to know is like, what was the moment, like, you decided, you know what? I know, Dwayne, you work for Nike, you work for Jordan, that you decided, you know what? I don't want to do it corporate anymore. I just want to do this independently. Same thing with you, AJ, where it's like, I know we've talked about, you know, you have your studio, you have your team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was the moment for you, AJ, if we start with you, where it was, I'm done with working for somebody else. I'm about to try to build this thing myself.
Yeah, I started adding up the numbers, and it didn't make. No, seriously, like it just didn't make sense anymore. So I got a good friend of mine. He became a lawyer, and I became what he wanted to become. So we always laugh about this. And you know, I'm looking at life, and I'm saying, okay, I'm the best at what I do when it comes to retail. I've been in this game for a long time. They made me a buyer. I'm district manager. I'm traveling. It's fun. But I am spending zero time with my family. Can't even afford to do that if I wanted to, because you take a day off, your employer is like, well, that's a day out of your check, you know, and nobody in retail is getting, you know, just straight up wages. It's always by the hour. So I just started looking at it and saying, wow, I'm never going to have this opportunity to be free. And my family, you work retail, when you get in retail, it's 10 to 9 every day. Like, so my family saw me for like 0 seconds, and it started putting a real stress on my family. So for me, I started looking at things and saying, hey, how do I make this realistic? The only way to make it realistic is to go unrealistic, to quit this and be that crazy person that everybody's going to look at for a while and say, you're lazy, you're this, you're that, and you got to go after your dream. You got to fight through all of that, to go after what it is that you feel is going to be the fix or the solve. And for me, it was like that moment sitting in the store and saying, okay, I was working for a guy at the time, and he asked me to sign a contract that I wouldn't leave the store. And it was sort of like, wow, you wanted me to sign my soul over? I'm like, is this what the music industry guys are going through? So I'm just like, I'm not going to do that. And, this is a good segue because I plan on starting my own thing. And that's how I exited the game and just realized, like, I'm never going to be able to make these hours make sense, dollars and cents. And I'm never going to be able to free other people, because all I was doing was training other people to be like me. And then they got in the same trap. They're so good that they never get a day off. You know what I mean? And it was just that thing. And so even now, I wouldn't say that I have just the ability to go away and do nothing. I'm still working, but it's a difference when you're working towards freedom for yourself and your family, and you can actually express that in different ways. And you can make your own schedules and deal with how you want to launch product. It's a whole different animal. Yeah.
Dwayne, I know you work Nike, Jordan. So like for a lot of people, that's the dream job. So for you,
and it should be, right? Because that's that's the pinnacle of the game. If that's the path you want to go on,
right?
But I would say honestly, mine started in '88, man. When I graduated from high school, and I couldn't get into the industry. Right. And so I thought it was like everybody has something against Black people. Why can't you let me in? Right. And so for me, it's like from that moment, I knew that if I ever got a chance to get in, I would figure out a way to provide another pathway for people just like me trying to get in. And I had no idea I was going to get in. Right. But that was the thinking at the time. And so I didn't act on it until 2010. So it took me, quite some time. I got in, spent quite a bit of time in the industry. And I remember in 2010, I was joking with a friend of mine the other day where I was like, I resigned from my job and then took 8 weeks off. So he was like, wait. Like, he was like, you like Ice Cube from Friday. Like, how do you get fired on your day off, right? He's like, you go quit and then take time off. And so what I did was I literally resigned from the job I had as design director of Jordan, and then took 8 weeks off and said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to figure out what my life looks like in 8 weeks. And I'll let you know if I'm going to come back or not. And I literally tested this idea called Pensole in 2010. Wow. And got my own money, had the class downtown Portland at University of Oregon, brought in 41 students, way too many, but brought in 41 of them. And a few things happened for me. One, I fell back in love with design again, because I didn't realize how much the corporate structure from those 22 years took away from me. Right. And so when I got into that environment of people who just had a blank slate, wanting to receive knowledge that half of it I forgot, and they were able to help me remember, and me to pass that on to them, and then to see them do something with that information, I didn't want to leave that feeling. I didn't want to leave that emotion that was happening. And once we had that first class, bro, after that first class, the kids went back to their respective design schools, and they started telling their schools and their teachers. And I started getting calls from other schools saying, hey, can we work with you and partner with you to do this thing? And I still had 4 more weeks left, right, of my 8-week vacation. I got a call from Art Center because I had did some work with them before, and they were like, "Hey, we would love to partner with you to do something." And I'm like, "Damn, like y'all the like top design school in the whole U.S. Like, I can't even afford to go to your school. Like, I wish I would have." And then like a week later, Parsons reached out and said, "Hey, can we work with you on this idea?" And here I am sitting with the best product design school and the best fashion design school in the U.S. after a 2-week session, right? Wow. That transformed some people's thoughts of what design was. And so from there, it's like, all right, I need to go back and figure out how to make some money so I can really leave. So I went back to the job. I took another job, but I told them almost immediately when I got back, it's like, I'm gonna leave. I said, because I feel, no, literally, I told them like, I feel like I can help you more on the outside than I can being inside.
Yep.
And everyone understood it, right? Because that was a bit of who I was in Jordan. Like, I was always helping people and I was always looking at people's work. And so once I went back in and I told them I was leaving, I mean, that was the longest 6 months that I spent anywhere, where it was really clear once I went back, and then the support and the love that I got from the people that I worked with, I knew I was going in the right direction. My wife, with her only thing was just make sure we had insurance, right? So here I am quitting a 6-figure job, and she's like, just make sure I get the insurance, right? Just make sure the insurance is straight. But no, I knew many years before I got in, dude. And it was just my path had to happen in order for this other thing to happen. And to your point, AJ, it's like, I just see myself as a vessel to create a pathway that I didn't have, especially for people of color, right? Because when I got in, I thought I was the only one until I met Wilson Smith a few years later. And I found out I was number 2 and he was number 1. But then it was just like, I still didn't see anybody else.
Right.
And that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, considering we in the front on ads and running and jumping and dunking and picking up a mic and selling product.
Yeah.
But there wasn't enough of us behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And then that became my new purpose. The new mission is to, okay, now how can I provide this exposure to this other side of the industry that you did not know existed?
Yep.
And that the companies needed too. So it's not like it was a foreign relationship, right?
Exactly.
But no, that was how I started, man.
Very dope.
So first off, I mean, I take my hat off to both of you guys for being able to jump out of, the corporate citizenship, as I call it. But, to everyone listening, I want to make something super clear. Like, I think in both of your paths, they're not saying it wasn't a good experience working for somebody else. They got a bulk of their experience while working for someone else, then found their purpose to do their own thing. Just because while at Yellowbrick, I talked to a lot of students, and everyone just, you know what, I don't want to work for a brand. I just want to start my own shit. And they want to jump right into it. There's a lot of valuable lessons working from a brand. So I don't think AJ or Dwayne is saying, if you have an opportunity to work for a brand, there's valuable lessons there.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. You'll know the time when the time is for you to jump out to try your own thing. So I want to make that clear, because I know some people be like, man, Dwayne said, fuck it, I'm out. So I'm going to quit my job tomorrow.
And to make it, to make
that, okay? Do not,
to make it,
not have a Dave Chappelle moment and just and kill everything. It's calculated, man. It's calculated.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, it feels like, when you're a kid and you're about to get a whooping for your mom when you got in trouble, that stomach feeling. That's what it felt like to me when it was time to go. It was just like something isn't, that internal thing. It's like I'm supposed to be doing something else, or I'm gonna be in trouble. You know what I mean? So I feel like there's more of that. It is timing. It's everything. I learned a lot. I can't even tell you. Like, everything that I do now came from those experiences. I didn't jump until it was time.
Correct.
And I think that's an important piece. But like on the back of that, because everyone will see Pensole, everyone will see AJ doing all this creative stuff. Speak to some of like the challenges that you've had to face starting your own thing, Dwayne.
Besides being broke? I mean, if you wrote down on paper as an entrepreneur, like, okay, you got some money saved, obviously you got a 401k, and you're about to spend it on this idea that has never existed in my industry. I don't have a career in education at all. And so one of the first things I did was went to school. So, but I didn't go to school as a student. I went to school as a teacher. So I started teaching at these top schools with the idea of being a student of the school. Like, I want to know, how'd you become number one, Parsons? Like, how'd you become number one, MIT? Like, how'd you become number one, Art Center? So my whole time I was investing into making sure I understood kind of the opportunity of what education was and what it should be, because it's still messed up, right? So it should be one thing, but it's not that. And I want to understand all the rules so I can break them. And I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we sometimes step out too soon. Like, we don't understand what we're stepping on or stepping into, right? And so I wanted to understand the landscape. They needed something from me and I needed something for them. So I thought it was a fair deal. And the other piece for me was brand building, right? So you have to build brand equity. That's more valuable than money because it turns into money.
Yeah.
So the first part for me was, okay, I need to understand the landscape of what education was and design education. The second piece was, all right, I need to brand build, because no one knew what Pensole was. But as soon as it's next to Parsons, and then it's next to MIT, and it's next to, art centers, next to some of these other places, then people start to pay attention to what is that, right? And then once you get that visibility, now you have to produce results. So we've always been about results, because we knew if we produce the results, that will then turn into not only brand equity, but then even also revenue. And that revenue, that revenue becomes the partnerships of the industry, the relationship that you develop, right? Where for us, like, we never thought, I never went into this thinking how much money I'm gonna make. I went into it thinking about filling a void that people didn't fill, and it was needed,
right?
Making an impact and doing what was right. And I knew if I built it through that lens, the money part will come.
Yep.
So I just grinded it out, man. I mean, I grinded it out for 9 years with my own money. And then it wasn't until last year, right? So last year, like, I got opportunity to partner with Foot Locker. That helped boost it even more, right? But I was prepared for the long haul. And I think sometimes people who, especially some of the younger generations, they want to have their own brand. You have no idea what that means. Like, if you are not ready to lose everything that you own, including relationships and family, don't do it. Like, this ain't no game, man. This is not a game.
Yeah, at all. 100%. Some of the challenges, I'm gonna tell you, it's funny. When I got in this, because I came from like I'm like this retail veteran expert that's A to Z on that stuff. I'm an expert at giving ideas and things like that. So the first challenge that I faced was, like, you're this guy with all these ideas and nobody knows who the hell you are. Like, it's like, who are you again? Like, you know what I mean? And that's really how it works in corporate. Like what he said, you have to have a brand. There's some type of leverage that you have to say, these ideas are good. And so what happened to me a lot was that the people that I was speaking to, they would send me shoes or send me stuff, and then they would take the idea. And that was the exchange. And so that was, being broke is a part of this thing, called having your own, you know what I mean? And for me, I wasn't in a position to get any loans. I didn't go to school for what I do. So I'm literally building this plane.
Alone? What's that?
On my own. Exactly. Exactly. So that's the feel. Another challenge I'll say, that a lot of people don't get to speak about is family challenge. Not even just your immediate family, like your wife or your kids or anything, it's like your extra family looking at you and saying, you're the F up of the family. Like, you're doing nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, or, you know, why are you trying to sell these super expensive sneakers, you know, or build this dream that doesn't exist? You know, when I came into custom sneakers, it wasn't like I meant that, you know what I mean? So you know how I came into it. And so stumbling upon something like that and being able to do it, it's like, man, this is amazing, you know, and I'm feeling like, okay, I can run with this. And then it's to have family members that you love or thought you know, love you, tell you like, this ain't it either, you know, and that you're not doing anything for, you know, the people. That's another thing you have to fight. There's a lot of mental battles that you have to fight alone in your own studio, in your own space, in your own time, trying to figure out if this is truly what you should be into and should be doing. You know, and then I think the other thing is just like, once you have a grasp on getting the people's attention, the next thing is like pitching ideas that you can do. What I did, I learned to pitch things that I can do. I got out of like this, hey, Reebok, you should do this. You know what I mean? Like, it was like I had to come to them almost like with like ransom notes, like, hey, you know, this is what I think you should do. It. If you don't do it, I'm going to do it tomorrow. Like, that's how I started approaching everything. And that was like, it was good because it ended up working out for me, man. But it's still a challenge because you're more aggressive, you know, in trying to show who you are. How I got to know Mr. Dr. Dwayne Edwards was through LinkedIn. You know what I mean? Like, that was the first place that I was able to connect with different people that were in, you know, the sneaker industry, higher ups that I felt like blazed a path that I could talk to. And so, you know, that platform did a lot for me, you know, as far as the struggle with trying to connect with people before Instagram, because it was like you got to connect with the actual people that were making the decisions at LinkedIn. So that's like my journey, man. It's like the money is a thing, you know, but yet, you know, there's this mentality of feeling driven and not having other people that feel the same way. Dwayne, I lock in with you, like watching The Last Dance, like, and seeing Jordan get emotional about people saying that he's mean and things like this is like, okay, yeah, he did some mean things and that's hazing. I don't, you know, that's the sports world, but the drive that man had made his team what it was. And a lot of people don't understand, like, him coming into practice, not laughing is him playing that final game at practice. It's like, I'm here already. You know what I mean? Like, and that's how you have to be. Like, that's what I learned. It's the mentality you have to have when you are literally on your own. This is Alexander John. This ain't Alexander John in France. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is Pensole. Like, you have to literally have that mentality until somebody recognizes, hey, this guy has something and wants to join your team. That's it.
Well, yeah, it's that's what I, you know, the students that come through our doors, they'll tell you that. Like, I joke around, but I don't play, right? Where, you know, it's like, I'm dead serious because I'm giving you all the answers to the test.
Right.
I didn't have anybody to give me the answer. Nobody even told me there was a test. Okay. Nope. And so for me, it's like, I am dead serious about it. If you walk through those doors, you need to be dead serious too.
Right.
And for me, like watching it the other night, you know, I worked with him for 10 years, right? So I understood him. I understood his mentality, and that shit rubbed off, right?
Right.
And so last night was just like, damn, that was a nice reminder of some of those conversations.
Right.
But I wish the younger generation had more of that mentality, right? Where it's like, do you really want to be great?
Exactly.
And do you want to do everything it takes to be great?
Right.
Some people just want to be all right.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just like,
and that's true. That's so true, man. It's so true.
So this next question, I used to position this question as it was heavy, but I stopped doing that. I mean, I've been able to work with a lot of creative people over the last 10 years, but there's a difference between working with creative people and working with people of color that are creative. So the question I have, I mean, either of you could jump in, is what are some of the challenges you've seen working in the design space as men of color, and how have you overcome those?
Yeah. I'll go first because I feel like Dwayne has a better answer than mine. You know what I mean? So I'll let him. So for me, it's been respect. You know, just being able to respect what I bring to the table and how it's looked at. You'll work and you'll put all this thought. This is onion. I'm an onion effect type guy, so I want to put these layers of thoughts and ideas, and you present only to watch it just be like, you know. And then, you know, when there's any add-ons, it's sort of like, you know, how you build a website. You know, they treat the add-on like it's better than the actual thing. You know, and it's like, okay, I'm in this meeting with you, and I gave you this idea, but it didn't become important to you until you had your add-on. And that's what I've witnessed and faced in the industry. And it's at first I thought I was taking it personal, and I got to talk to, you know, somebody that was telling me like, no, this has been built this way. So you can't take it personal. If you take it personal, it becomes emotional. And then when it becomes emotional, we're black, we get angry, there's this whole different effect from there. So I'm just like, okay, I'm not gonna take it personal. I gotta understand how to get the yes. So it made me more creative, believe it or not. Like, it made me more creative and smarter about the approach, the whole thing of like, how do I sell an idea? How do I get this company to buy into my idea as a black man, you know, that is not gone to the places that they consider necessary to get here. You know, some people think that you arrive by luck, by having relationships. Like, oh, you that person put on your shoes, so that's why you're here. No, that person put on my shoes because there was something about that shoe then. You know what I mean? And so that's the thing that you have to show them that you have, and it's not easy, man. That's been my experience, and you know, it's sometimes still the experience with different brands and different companies. It's just about who you work with, and I think I have a voice now that I have somewhat of a brand, and other brands can vouch and say, hey, I've worked with them, but there's still like this stigma of like, it's not as important until we've actually put into it, you know, as well, you know, or it's not treated like this is gold coming straight from you, you know. It's right. that thing. It's constant.
Yeah, it's similar, man. I mean, I faced limits being set on my potential just because I was a person of color. And yeah, I have advantages of designing for a consumer that is more closely connected to me, but there's more to me than that as a creative. And sometimes getting people to see you beyond what they see is difficult sometimes. Right. And, you know, I use the example of I've designed one of these boots that I've never played this sport before, never participated in this sport before, but I approached it in the same way I would do something else. Right. And it turned out to be one of the best shoes ever created for equestrian riding.
Wow.
But I've never done that before. But if you put me in the room with 15 designers and 15 products, they would have never guessed that I did that thing.
Yep.
And that's the part that I loved, right? Because you didn't see me through that lens, but I showed you or proved to you that I can do something that you didn't think that I could do.
Right.
And for me, like, I love that because that just creates more value. So for me, like, I get excited about doing things I don't know that much about.
Right.
Because that starts to build my knowledge inventory. And it's something I tell my students all the time is, don't do the predictable things. Do things that you're uncomfortable with so you can build knowledge based on that discomfort to make you a better designer when you want to do something that you're familiar with.
Right.
But when you stay in your comfort zone, you almost live up to the stereotype in some ways for certain things if you're working in a corporate structure, right?
Yeah.
And what was wild to me, like when I took on the project, you know, I started doing my research, and then I found out that within the first 25 Kentucky Derbies, black men won the majority of them.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that.
Wow.
And then we disappeared. Like in 21, we disappeared. It wasn't until 2000 to whereas another black man was in the Kentucky Derby. But then it's like, so here I am designing against this product that I knew nothing about, but yet I have a history in. Like, I'm supposed to be there. Like, I was the original champion.
Right.
But I didn't find that out until I started digging and doing research. So it made me even more excited. Like, oh, I'm gonna show you. Like, I can do this. I can do this just as much as anyone else can do it because we gave birth to the first one. Right?
Wow.
But it's like you have to do that research to understand your history.
Yeah.
Which that creates value.
Yeah.
And I feel a lot of us don't understand our value because we just don't do enough research on our history.
Yep.
If you dig far enough, you'll find that, you know, we were here. We did some things, right? But again, if you don't know that history and someone puts you in a box, then you just go into that box because you have no other knowledge of where you're supposed to be.
Exactly.
But no, I enjoy proving people wrong, bro. I enjoy it more than a lot of things.
I agree with that.
I feel like I would be doing this conversation unjust if we didn't talk about education. Education's changing so quickly right now, especially with COVID. You know, I've had different conversations with both of you. You both have paved your own way to get where you're at. How would you define what education is today? Like, what changes would you like to see in education if you can make it?
I would get a nuclear bomb and just blow it up and start off.
Well, that's kind of what happened right now.
Yeah, I mean, pretty
Right.
much, man. I mean, honestly, because, and I tell my students this all the time, is education is the only thing that we pay for over and over again and we don't like.
Right.
There's nothing else in our life that we pay for over and over and over again that we don't like. We usually go buy some shoes. We don't like them. We don't buy them again. We go to a restaurant. We don't like the meal. We don't go back again, right? But education is the only thing we keep going back to because for some reason we're convinced that we have to.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying don't go to school. I'm just saying find the one that fits what you want. And you need to demand more because you got to understand you are paying their bill.
Yeah.
Why would you accept what they choose to give you if you're paying them?
Right.
And I just had this conversation with both of my daughters. One is in college now, and the other one's about to go to college. And I'm like, yo, if you don't like something, say something. Like I'm paying that damn bill. You better say something if you don't like it.
Right.
And then let me deal with it. Let me find the people that I need to talk to make some changes happen. And that happened a few times, actually, where, real quick story, she was studying over in Hong Kong, and her teacher she had to show like a collection. She's a fashion designer, and she had to show her a little collection. And her teacher asked her, like, why are your models so dark?
Wow.
And she goes, I thought you would do some streetwear, not like this couture. And she called me. I was quick on that email. It got to the vice president of the Hong Kong office, and then got to the president of the Savannah office, and they both apologized immediately.
Wow.
And that teacher is not necessarily teaching me anymore at that school. But my point is, though, a normal student would just accept that.
Yep.
They would just accept it and keep it moving, right? But I've empowered her to understand is like, nah, you don't accept what people tell you when it's derogatory or it's something you don't like, especially if you're putting forth the effort to do something great at their institution. No, you have right?
Yeah.
So I just think education needs to be blown up and start all over. And to your point, D, it is, right? In some levels, it is.
Yeah.
And a lot of flaws are being exposed during this time right now. And I think it's going to be for the better when we come out on the other side of this. I think those institutions who truly do care about educating people will redesign what they look like, instead of trying to make the status quo fit within this situation.
Yeah. I agree. So I chose that side. You know, for me, education was blown up because I didn't have the time to um, put in because life was moving too fast. Like I went to trade school. I ended up getting building apartment maintenance, and I ended up coming out as a chef on the other side. So I'm a certified chef as
Dope.
well. And what I learned from that was that um, I'm a doer. You know, I can go do things, and I wanted to learn things that engaged my gifts and expounded on what I felt like I could do. And so all of the things that I learned in trade school had something to do with creativity, and it engaged that mind that I had for that. And that's what I feel like education doesn't do. I'm watching my kids go through it now. I have a son. He's genius level. He does music. He designs clothing. He has his own clothing line. He's in here in the studio with me doing sneakers and giving ideas. And he's a great kid. But in school, he's like, they're teaching me in social studies about this or that, and he's just not engaged. And
Yeah.
so I feel like the thing in education right now is that you're not allowing people to learn things that they're interested in.
Right.
I didn't get to do sneakers at the level that I'm doing this business at by just consuming what other people said would be good for me to consume. I
Right.
actually consumed marketing when I wanted to, and was ready to. Like once I had a couple ideas stolen by some brands, I was like, okay, they don't know who I am. I need to study marketing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then I went on to study more about sneakers and the actual making of it. When I decided, like, okay, I do want to have a factory. I do want to be able to make these changes. What materials are they using in the embellishment? So there was a lot of things that I learned, and I'm continually learning, man. I'm buying equipment every other month and continually adding to what I feel like is my ongoing education. And it's serving me a purpose now. That's the biggest thing that I see about school with certain degrees. Of course, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you're going to be there for a while. But certain fields, man, I feel like you spend 4 years there, and you could have probably quantified that 4 years in a different way if you actually started practicing at some level the thing it was that you wanted to do. I mean, how many companies now that are doing marketing, big marketing companies, that some of the people didn't go to school for this stuff? They're just like genius level minds, you know what I mean? And I have no problem with school, but I'm with you, Dwayne. It's got to be focused. You got to know what you're going there for. And I tell my kids that as well, like, know what you're going to school for. Don't waste your time. Don't waste that teacher's time. Don't go to college thinking that you're going to go there to make money. No, you're going there to get an education to go towards the thing that's going to bring you cash flow. I never chose what I wanted to do based off of how much money it made. It was always about, is this going to free, me? Is this going to free other people? Like, I got 10 siblings that don't do what I do, that did not make this decision. And, how can I help them? And so that was how I made my decisions. And if you go into it like that, like Dwayne said, the money will come. Like, it'll show up as long as you're true to what it is. If you feel like your calling is, and consistently beating that door, So I think education just needs to engage more, man. We need to, if you're going to have these buildings that our kids or our people are going to go into, you need to actually tell them, that they can be great at what they want to be great at, or feel like you're there to guide. I feel like teachers are there to teach a subject, but they're not necessarily guides, and some of them, not all of them, because some people's callings are teaching. I've had an 8th grade teacher that it was one thing, like, that he told me. It was like cause and effect. That stayed with me for the rest. I still use that to this day, because everything that you do, has a cause and there's a cause and an effect. And so if I put something out, I'm gauging the effect before I even put it out. And it's almost like, life math now. It's like, if I do 1 + 1 is equal 2, or so I really appreciate teachers that, teach, and are guiding and really interested in the kid growing older. That teacher still follows me on Instagram right now. He's amazed. Like, he's like, this is crazy that you're doing all this stuff. So it's dope to see this stuff come full circle.
I mean, to just add to what both of you guys said, I think to Dwayne's point with the bomb, because I'm totally there with you, and to AJ with the guide. I think right now, 2020, with COVID happening, where there's a real cool opportunity is, that 8 to 12 space where, kids' minds are so fresh, and now they have opportunities to like think of things a totally different way that we never had. I always have been saying this, like sneakers is great, but sneakers is really just a gateway drug into thinking creative in a lot of different ways.
Yep.
We value the consumer side of it, but then there's so many other opportunities to like explore it and do cool things. So I think it's important for us to just highlight that piece, just because I feel like that's the next double down. Where like, how could we get into these elementary schools and high schools and have them having these young people, not just people of color, but people generally start to think of like sneaker education as something that like, it's not only about the sneaker, it's just about opening your mind up in a different way.
Yeah, and I think on some levels it's on us to share that and bring that to light, man. And I mean, I know I was in Boston. There was this 8th grade teacher, 7th grade teacher, and she was like, "Hey, I would like for you to help me teach my kids math through sneakers." And I'm like, "Okay, well, what do you mean?" And so she started doing this process of pattern grading and nesting, and she was saying that's a form of geometry. Man, if I knew that's what geometry was, like, dude, I would have been straight.
Right.
Yeah. I would have been straight. Like, I would have did that all the time. Like, I've been doing geometry for 31 years and had no idea. Like, that's what I was doing.
So, I mean, let's share a story and then we'll get into some questions and close it off. We know storytelling's in everything that we do. Maybe share a story that was about a project that you guys worked on that was hell, but then by the time you finished it, you look back and you were like, man, that was totally worth it. Because like everyone always sees the end product.
Right.
AJ does some cool shit, but like they don't see like the shadows.
Right.
They see the light.
For me, I mean, every story for me is hell because I specialize in something that doesn't exist. You know what I mean? But I'll say the mixtape was a crazy project to work on. We handled all of the manufacturing in my studio. I got a team. I had to fly people in to work on the project. And the companies wanted to launch, sooner. They didn't understand, like when I designed that shoe for Complex Con, it was only designed to win. I don't know if you could identify with that, Dwayne, but you design certain shoes to win. You're like, no, this shoe is a winner. You know what I mean? And so that's, at the time when they called me for Complex Con, I had Shoe Surgeon, I had Mosh, and JBF. All of those guys are in my booth. Puma called us all. You know what I mean? So I'm looking at this culturally, and then I'm looking at it like, okay, these are, the giants of this custom sneaker thing, and yet they're my peers at the same time. So we're like bros, like we know each other. We came up together in this thing. So we've all kept our lanes and everything, but I'm looking at it like, listen, I told my team, I said, listen, we have to win. You know what I mean? They're like, no, this is not coming to. I was like, no, you don't understand. We have to win. You know what I mean? So I designed the mixtape, based off of that premise and that concept of, I knew that we didn't have that much time, and I needed to be able to make something that was detailed and it looked like, it was well thought out and had purpose and all those things as it pertained to hip hop, because you can't be the black guy that was given the theme of 90s tracks and you fail 90s culture. You know what I mean? Like, you just like, you failed us. You know what I mean? Like,
that's funny.
So I had all this weight on my shoulders coming into that thing, and to see that shoe turned into an actual release, like it turned into the seating thing. Jay-Z's wearing it, all this stuff is great, but I really didn't design that shoe for mass production by me. It was like, Puma, you could do this, but when it came to me and they asked me if I could do it, Emery's like, yeah, can you do it? I'm like, yeah. He's like, we're gonna need X amount of pairs, and a production run that matters. You're in thousands. So we produced that in my studio, and it was blood, sweat, tears. It was a lot of praying going on. It was a lot of praying that the deadline gets moved. And listen, it works. Like we had a deadline. And we were like maybe 500 shoes like short of the deadline. And I prayed about it. I was like, listen, team, we're gonna stop what we're doing. We're gonna pray right now. You know what I mean? And watch God make a miracle. I kid you not. We prayed. 2 minutes later, we got a phone call that was like, well, this partner doesn't want to launch the shoe until this time because they got something else coming up. So you got another month. I'm like, so I'm just like, God is real, So it was one of those projects that it taught me everything I need to know about being serious about going all the way in with this manufacturing thing and making it something I could work with other artists on. Like I needed to be able to not just make this good for me. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking at COVID and how it changed the game, and people are going to need jobs and that never knew that they can do these things. The people that work with me aren't all artists, so I grabbed a crew of people who were dedicated. They had a criteria, that dedication, that thing that Jordan looked for. Like they ain't laughing when they come into the gym, you know what I'm saying? Like they're ready to go. That's all you need to be able to break down a process and think creatively. And so the mixtape for me was that project that was like, it was hell. But when I look back, what I was able to do there now set the stage for this next phase that I'm going into.
That's dope. That's dope. I'll give you a short one. So for me, it was designing Jordans, man. I mean, when you got $100 million on the table, and your job is just not to F it up, dude. It's like damn, man. And just the concept of doing it for him, right? So for all of y'all watching The Last Dance now, imagine presenting that dude something.
Sheesh.
Right? Where I wouldn't call it hell, but it was just pressure.
Right.
But it was pressure that I wanted. It was pressure that I received and pressure that I needed. Mm-hmm. In order just to push myself to see what does my best look like, right? But I think where it was different for me was I was a fan of the brand and the person before I got into the brand. Mm-hmm. So for me to use that logo, it meant more to me than other people because I was a consumer before I became a contributor.
Yeah.
And so it was just completely different for me. And so I would say that was probably why all this is here is because of Jordan's time. But it was the best time because it was the time where I had to be my sharpest. I had to be on point because I was answering to that man and I was answering to the culture. And when you have that level of kind of priorities and expectation, like you do most rise to the occasion, but at least it's being able to put yourself in that moment to see if you can. And I'm thankful that I had a chance to be able to do that for 10 years, is to be able to present things to him, knowing his expectation, knowing his criteria, and then being able to work with the talented people that I had a chance to work with.
Right.
That can't be replaced.
Right.
Not be replaced. But it was a lot of pressure, man. People think it's fun, and people would love to have that chance, but they're like, all right, really? Like 100 million right there. 100 million right there. You really want to do that?
Wow.
Yo, so we almost close to wrapping, but I know a lot of people would love to just hear some advice from both of you. Like, if they wanted to get not only to the sneaker industry, but if you're creative and trying to get into a design or creative space, AJ, what advice would you give someone that's trying to get into it?
I would say that the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that they're already in it. Like, it's like trying to act like, how do I get into the world? Like, we're already in the world, you know? Like, but the thing that you have to do is contribute. How you become important or noticed is really what you want to ask. And that, to me, is by doing something that's truly creative and that stands out. And it may take some time for you to think of what that thing is that you have to contribute. I heard, I listened to a talk that Jerry Lorenzo did one time, and the thing that I got from it was that he said, like, you know, this whole thing, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said it's like a conversation. It's like you have to be able to contribute something to it. Like if you come to the game and you just have something that somebody else can do, then you're not going to last long here. And there's a lot of people who waste time in coming to the game and saying, you know what, I made this wallet, you know, and everybody else can make it, but mine is green. We know from being in this industry, soon as, you know, whatever small percentage has changed, it belongs to somebody else. And so there has to be something, if you want to be in this game called fashion, you know, being creative, designer, you want to live that life, that you have to consistently reinvent yourself. You have to reinvent other people's products. You have to show them that they forgot something. You know what I mean? Like, you know, that's really like what I specialize in, is like, hey, oh, you forgot something, you know? And so people are often commenting like, these look better than the originals, or it's not necessarily better, I just enhanced it. I'm like the AMG of the sneaker world. Like, that's how I feel. Like, that's what my job is. And so I settled in on that. Like, I started saying, oh, that's what I will be. Like, and so I stuck to that, and now I get design opportunities to actually design sneakers that the companies are making. I'm getting clothing opportunities as well. But it all starts with me showing them that I have something that I'm doing that's valuable to them and solving a problem. Like, I would say my short answer, be in the business of solving other people's problems, and you can get in this industry, because that's really where I'm getting a lot of work at.
So,
Yeah, I would say, you know, the talent piece is one thing, right? You know, working on your craft, and really working on it to with the mindset of being a master at that craft, right? Where you will have hundreds, if not thousands of people doing the same thing. Hundreds and thousands of people perfecting sketching techniques and illustrator techniques and sewing techniques and all those things.
Yeah.
The separation is up here though.
Yeah.
And for me, like, my best advice to you is, in addition to perfecting your craft or trying to, is to have the mentality of being undeniable.
Right.
Because having that mentality of being undeniable will separate you from those hundreds of thousands, because most of them won't have that mentality.
Yep.
Most will just be happy to be there.
Yep.
But if you have that mindset of being undeniable, you cannot be stopped. No means thanks. Yes means thank you, right? Because you gave me an opportunity, right? But no means thanks. Like, all right, cool. No, all right, thanks. I appreciate that. I'm gonna figure out another way, right?
Right.
But then when you get the opportunity, you say thank you, and you appreciate that moment, and then you work even harder to show the person that gave you that chance that they didn't make a mistake.
Yeah. Man,
but
that was great.
If you have that mindset of being undeniable, man, I lived my whole life with no means thanks, dude. Tell me that first. Like, give me a reason to go. Give me a reason.
I'm gonna steal that one. I ain't hear you say that one before. No means thanks. That's a new one.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yo, so we gotta wrap up, but I know there's a shitload of questions here. What I'll do is, AJ, why don't you let them know how to hit you? What's the best way? And then Dwayne, do the same thing. So if people have some individual questions they want to hit you on the side, they can do that, and then we can some final thoughts. So
if they're on Instagram, Alexander John Design, I'll definitely be answering all questions. This was great for me, and that's what I live for, to be able to do stuff like this. So hit me up. I will definitely answer all questions on Alexander John Design on the DM. Or you can send me an email. It's alexanderjohndesign@gmail. I have no problem with hopping on a call too, but I just got to know you first, because a lot of times, like, believe it or not, texting for me, you know, takes a lot of time, or emailing takes a lot of time, because I'm doing sneakers. People wonder how I drop sneakers so fast, because I'm not doing a lot of texting and emailing. If I feel like, the conversation needs to go there, or if there's a larger answer, I'll definitely, send somebody my number so I can talk to them. This I feel like, Dion, you started the next phase of what I want to do early, you know what I mean? And it's right on time at the same time with COVID taking place. So I appreciate it, man. Appreciate everybody that's here.
For sure.
Yeah.
Dwayne.
For y'all, some of y'all know me. I ain't on social media at all. So, the only social media platform I'm on is LinkedIn. So shoot me a note on LinkedIn and I'll get back to you. But make it count though. Don't ask me no stupid stuff, man. Make it count. And if it count, I'm gonna respond. But if it's just some BS, like, you ain't gonna hear from me.
Yeah.
But those people who know me, they know I respond, and because I know what it's like needing some advice. I know what it's like needing that push, right? And I feel I'm in a position now where I've had my shine. Like, I've done all the stuff that y'all want to do. Now I'm just trying to give it all back.
Yeah.
So if quality comes my way in form of questions and thoughts, then quality will come right back.
My final thought, what I think is important to close with is, like, this conversation happened organically.
Yeah.
I feel like, a lot of people see Dwayne, see AJ, and try to force something on you. Well, Dwayne, hey, listen. Well, AJ, listen. Well, if there's anyone listening, understand that let things happen organically and authentically, and don't push it. Like, don't push it so much that Dwayne's like, man, this guy keeps emailing me out, and
Right.
he asked me the right question, and AJ's like, man, this guy keeps hitting me on the DM, but, like, he ain't asked me shit yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, how's your day? It's like, no, man, I don't have time to tell you how my day is.
Yeah.
Right.
But,
I don't want to tell you how my day was. I don't want you to know nothing about me. It's about you. You tell me what you need to know.
But I make it sound funny, but it's happened in a very organic, cool way that I got to connect with both of you. I value the relationship with both of you, and I appreciate you guys taking, evening for you, night for me and AJ on a Wednesday to share your knowledge and drop some gems. And this is the beginning of something bigger. We said that on our first call where we first connected.
Yep.
So super appreciative. Thank you guys. And just on the Black side, I feel like super cool that, like, 3 Black men can get on a call and start a new benchmark, as I would call it, is like, this is what it looks like to work together and push things forward. So I appreciate you both, man.
No, I appreciate you too, bro. It's good. It's good to have a platform to share knowledge and insight, and then do it with good brothers too. The hour went by quick. I can keep going.
It did.
That's saying in the comments, they're like, we need another hour.
Right. It's just that, I think during this time, there's a lot of podcasts and there's a lot of talks and conversations. But, I think it's hard. I think the reason why people are excited about some of these is because they know how difficult it is to have a quality conversation with somebody, right?
Yeah.
And when you get it, like, you don't want it to end.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you, creating this platform for us to just talk about the stuff that we would normally talk about just now as a camera.
Yeah, man.
Because everybody isn't given real answers. Let's just be clear about that.
Man, yeah, I hate that, man.
Yeah, and that's the tough thing about this industry. So, like I said, it's a blessing, Dwayne. I appreciate you, man, more than you know. Like I said, constantly inspired, and can't wait to work with you in some capacity in the future as well. Once this thing lets up, and Dion, you already know. You know what I mean? Like, we working on about 17 ventures right now. Every other day it's a new idea.
Yeah, it's definitely a good energy. But thank you guys both, man, for spending your Wednesday evening, night with me. And let's keep it, like I said on the first call, like, if we don't continue to do more shit together, then we just wasted an hour of our life.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I'm looking up plane tickets to Portland right now. You know what I mean? Y'all think y'all laughing? I'm so serious, man.
Yo, come on, man. I'm here. I probably won't catch a plane this year. So,
all right, fellas. Well, enjoy your night. and we'll keep in touch. I appreciate it again, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Peace.
Yep.